7 p.m. Join us.
In a world where truth is the ultimate power and opinions scream the loudest, it's time to wade through the noise.
Hunger no get tribe! Hunger no get religion!
And scan the human interest and trending topics that matter. Stay tuned to The Issues, your plug to the stories making the buzz, from politics to science and technology, social justice, and more. Let's tackle the tough questions and expose the truth. The Issues, on Voice of the People Television, Mondays to Fridays, 8 to 9 p.m. The Issues. Don't just react, understand.
You don't have a voice, don't come here. You better make sure your voice is heard.
Are you ready for the extraordinary? Something big is happening on your screen. Introducing VOP TV. Now streaming on SLTV channel 264. From breaking news to captivating conversations, news analysis, giving you all sides to the story. We break in-depth discussions on the issues that matter, from politics to sports, entertainment, and lifestyle. VOP TV on SLTV channel 264. Join us as we redefine what television means to you. Voice of the People Television, VOP TV. Now you have more than a voice.
Well, hello and welcome to the Media News and Voice of the People Television. I am David Edwin. Before we begin the news, we would urge you to kindly visit our website. It's www.vop.ng for fresh and trending news stories. First, the headlines. Obi Ezekwesili warns Senate to stop playing with fire. UN condemns massacre. Turkey pledges support. Donald Trump says U.S. partnered Nigeria in Sokoto ISIS targeting. Federal government gives Chinese contractor ultimatum on safety concerns. Turkey block Mal's legal option as INEC recognizes weakest faction. Police arrest 7 international scammers in Delta State. In the world of business, Hostcom warns monarchs of host communities' contracts. In sports, Ademola Lookman scores in Atletico's debut, and in entertainment, Don seeks attention to alternative heritage. And now the news in full. Former Minister of Education, Obi Ezekwesili, has warned the Senate against actions that could further inflame public frustration and undermine Nigeria's democracy. This follows the upper chamber's rejection of a proposal to make real-time electronic transmission of election results mandatory, while approving changes to election timelines, penalties for electoral offenses, and the use of voting technology. Reacting to the development, Ezekwesili accused the political class, particularly the Senate, of repeatedly taking decisions that alienate Nigerians. She asked the chamber to stop playing with fire, adding that it could almost as if the political class, especially as exemplified by the Senate, just wakes up every morning and looks for what to do to upset Nigerians. She argued that citizens were justified in expressing anger over what she described as excesses and poor judgment of lawmakers, while stressing that no one should incite violence. The former minister said Nigerians must continue to exercise their civic rights and remain vigilant in defending democratic values. Still on the electronic transmission controversy, global president of the Ijaw National Congress, Professor Benjamin Okaba, has flagged the Senate for retaining election results transfer in the amended Electoral Act, stating the chamber did not reject electronic transmission but accountability in elections. Reacting to the controversial decision, Okaba said the Senate rejected finality and the simple powerful idea that the votes casted by the citizens in the sunlight should be the same votes counted at the end of the journey. He explained that the Senate has therefore placed a heavier burden upon all Nigerians, adding that the fight for credible elections has justified move from the floor of the Senate back to the polling units and the streets. According to him, the Senate delivered a defining no to a fundamental safeguard and irrevocably unleashing for generations the monsters of electoral fraud that have haunted the public. Okaba added that the Senate retreated from electoral integrity on the eve of an election year, choosing the comfort of the old on clear ways over the demanding light of transparency. Away from that matter, condemnation continue over the Senate's rejection of a proposed amendment to the Electoral Act, which sought to compel INEC to transmit polling unit results electronically in real time. The Nigerian Bar Association, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, the Young Progressive Party, and concerned Nigerians have also criticized the decision. NBA President Afam Osigwe called the Senate's refusal to a setback to electoral transparency and democratic accountability. Atiku described the move as a deliberate assault on Nigeria's electoral credibility, saying it undermines public trust and reform efforts. The Young Progressive Party said the critical amendment on the electoral transmission was deliberately provided to protect the system, benefiting the political elite. Voice of the People TV's Matthew Guswada spoke with residents in Lagos on the development.
The Senate has passed the Electoral Act 2022 Amendment Bill, following its third reading on the floor of the Red Chamber. However, lawmakers rejected a proposed amendment to Clause 60, subsection 3 of the bill that sought to make the electronic transmission of election results mandatory. The rejected provision would require presiding officers of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to electronically transmit election results from each polling unit to the INEC result viewing portal in real time after the prescribed form had been signed, stamped, and countersigned by party agents. Instead, the Senate adopted the existing provision of the Electoral Act, which states that the presiding officer shall transfer the results, including the total number of accredited voters and the result of the ballot, in a manner as prescribed by the Commission. Reacting to the development, Senate President Godswill Akpabio denied claims that the Senate had rejected electronic transmission of election results, which is already provided for in the Electoral Act. As Voice of the People TV, we got the opinion of Nigerians towards this new development.
Before people come out to vote, the INEC chairman, the people in the higher position, they have already made a plan of the person they want to be in that seat. This last election, you will see that in many places people did not vote due to they were attacked by thugs. People's votes were thrown away. It was not counted. The same day, before 6 o'clock, INEC already declared their candidates. You see that whether we vote here or we vote there, the vote doesn't count. INEC have a lot of things to do. We have urban area, rural area. All those rural areas, they didn't know anything about electronic voting. Some, they didn't even put them through how to even thumbprint. So for Nigeria, it's not going to work like that.
I think basically what the people are looking at is credibility, and they want to be sure that their votes would count. They want to be sure that every vote casted reflects their desire to put a certain aspirant in office. So it stems from a place of credibility. They want to make sure that their candidates get into the positions they wish them to get into. So I don't see anything wrong in them clamoring for that. I think it's just a form of reassurance for them.
As we've heard from citizens, opinions remain divided regarding the Senate decision on the Electoral Act amendments. While some trust INEC's discretion, others feel that mandatory electronic transmission remains key to transparent elections across the country. However, one thing remains clear: the call for credible, free and fair election remains consistent across the country. Matthew Ogunswada, reporting for Voice of the People Television.
Well, thank you so very much, Matthew, for that report. And in Abuja, the nation's capital city, residents in separate interviews with our correspondent, Abigail Oga, described the rejection of electronic transfer of results by the Nigerian Senate as a betrayal of public trust. Moving on to other stories, some senators have reaffirmed that Clause 60, Subsection 3 of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill on real-time electronic transmission of election results was passed by the Senate. 13 senators, led by Senator Einaya Abaribe, made the clarification at a news conference in Abuja, responding to reports that the clause had been rejected. Abaribe explained that a joint committee of electoral committee members from both chambers worked on the bill, and another committee to set up to harmonize the Senate and House versions. He added that after Wednesday's plenary adjournment, the Senate did not reconvene to approve the votes and proceedings, but a majority of senators across party lines supported real-time electronic transmission of results. Elsewhere in Anambra State, Residence Electoral Commissioner Elizabeth Agu is urging eligible Nigerians to take part in the ongoing continuous voter registration and obtain their permanent voter's card. Speaking in Oka, Agu said having a PVC is increasingly important in Nigeria's social, political, and economic life. Our correspondent in Oka, Ndu Okwaleze, has more details in this.
Disclosed that registration for 2027 general elections commenced on the 5th of January to end on 17th of April 2026 and charged prospective voters in the state to take advantage of the exercise. According to Agu, 4,423 prospective voters have registered since January 5.
This is second phase of the voters registration. Please encourage your people, those around you, to go and register. We have done 4 weeks now. The first week, which is from the 5th of January to the 12th of January, we had 0. There was nobody who registered. Second week of the exercise, we have 936 persons that registered. Third week of the exercise, we have 1,832 persons are registered. Fourth week of the exercise, which is just the concluded last week, we had 1,455, bringing it together to 4,423 persons that have registered.
The REC further explained that the system cleaned up those who engaged in unlawful acts of double registration as they were not able to vote during the recent governorship elections. She said issues of card missing, change of location, deleting or defacing of PVC can be handled differently instead of going for another process of capturing.
This card no longer serves for only voting. It serves for other means. including self-identification, including bank activities, all other means a card serves. That's one of the most authentic documents of identification in this country today.
Ndo Okpalaeze, VOP TV News.
Thank you so very much, Indu, for that report. Away from that, United States President Donald Trump has confirmed that the country collaborated closely with the Nigerian government to conduct airstrike on ISIS targets in Sokoto State on Christmas Day. Speaking at a national prayer breakfast in Washington, Trump disclosed that his country worked in close coordination with the government of Nigeria on the matter, adding that, however, the Nigerian government should get tougher. He explained that the strikes were intended to disseminate the ISIS terrorists who have been slaughtering Christians in that country by the thousands. Trump further emphasized the significance of the timing, stating that the terrorists were hit so hard they still do not know what the hell happened. Yes, he added that his government would do it again on a different day. Moving on, the head of Woro village in Kwara State, Omar Salihu, has disclosed that the terrorists attacked his community for nearly 10 hours before security forces arrived, thereby leaving scores dead and the village razed. According to Salihu, distress calls were sent to the authorities shortly after the attack began at about 5 p.m. in the evening, but the soldiers only arrived about 3 o'clock the following morning. He noted that sensitive intelligence might have been compromised as he had reported a threat letter to security agencies. Meanwhile, the defense headquarters said troops were promptly dispatched to dominate the general areas with robust patrols and surveillance among other security measures for about 2 weeks. It expressed shock over the tragic loss of innocent lives in the terrorist attack in Woro and neighboring communities in Kayama local government area of Kwara State. Meanwhile, the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Gutierrez has condemned the massacre in Kwara State while paying condolences to the families of the victims, the people and the government of Nigeria, and of course wishing them speedy recovery to the injured. In a post on X, the UN chief said he strongly condemned the terror attack on February the 3rd in Kwara State. Also, Turkey strongly condemned the attack, describing it as heinous. In a statement by its Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Turkey said it was deeply saddened by the loss of lives caused by the terror attacks in Kwara State and pledged continued support to Nigeria in its fight against terrorism. Meanwhile, the spate of attacks has renewed nationwide calls for a stronger security presence, improved intelligence gathering, and sustained federal intervention to address Nigeria's deepening insecurity crisis. But moving on to other stories, the federal government has threatened to sanction the China Harbor Engineering Company and China Harbor Operation and Maintenance Company if they fail to address the public safety and environmental concerns on the Makurdi-Enugu Road project in 7 days. The Minister of Works, Dave Umahi, gave the ultimatum in Abuja during a meeting with contractors and concessionaires handling the Maraba Kefi Akangwa Makurdi dual carriageway. According to the Director of Information and Public Relations at the Ministry of Works, Mohammed Ahmed, Umahi said the meeting was convened to address public complaints and enforce contractor accountability on projects. He disclosed that the meeting reviewed several concerns relating to projects handled by CHEC and CHOMC with warnings and directives to safeguard public health, ensure safety and quality delivery, and protect government investment. Ahmed cited the minister as disclosing that the ministry had received a formal petition over the ongoing Makurdi 9th Mile Enugu Road project, citing excessive dust from construction activities that poses environmental and health risks to residents along the corridor. And now to some political news. The governors, aligned with the Kabiru Turaki-led National Working Committee of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, have begun considering legal action following the recognition of the caretaker committee faction led by the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike. This followed Thursday's invitation of the group to the meeting of political parties leaders by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, which they say has now escalated the party's crisis. In a statement, its National Publicity Secretary, Ini Ememobong, criticized INEC's recognition of the Wike-backed caretaker committee as unconstitutional and provocative. Ememobong called on party members to stay peaceful and patient as they await the resolution of the ongoing court cases over the party's leadership. According to the statement, INEC's action, though extraordinary, vexatious, and capable of causing a widespread breach of peace, will be met with all possible legal responses. It added that it had hoped that an impartial umpire would have taken notice of the pendency of the matters in the Court of Appeal, including the judgment it relied upon to exercise restraint. In another development, the Labour Party has commended the Professor Josh Amopitan-led Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, for what it described as its steadfastness in adhering to the rule of law. These followed the Commission's recognition of Usman as the Labour Party's interim national chairman and Senator Darlington Wakocha as national secretary, and its further invitation to recognize leaders to its quarterly consultative meeting with political party leaders on Thursday. In a statement by Ken Asogwa, the senior special advisor on media to Labour Party's interim national chairman, the party said that INEC acted in compliance with a federal high court judgment of January the 21st, 2026, recognizing and inviting the new party leadership. Asogwa described the invitation as proof of INEC's commitment to truth and justice in Nigeria's democratic process. Meanwhile, ahead of the Federal Capital Territory's February 21st area council election, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has urged political parties to intensify the mobilization of eligible voters. Speaking in Abuja during the Commission's regular quarterly consultative meeting with leaders of political parties ahead of the election, INEC Chairman Professor Josh Amopitan advised party leaders to mobilize voters to collect their permanent voters' cards, emphasizing that political parties are indispensable partners in deepening electoral participation. He further warned political leaders and their supporters against hate speech, violence, and vote buying ahead and during the forthcoming elections. According to him, with the distribution concluding on February the 10th, the goal must be ensure that no eligible voter is disenfranchised. You're still watching the Midday News right here on Voice of the People Television. We'll go straight to the analysis segment of the news. And joining us now to make sense of these stories and more in the studio with us is Mr. Dele Fanimo. Mr. Fanimo is a seasoned reporter right here in Nigeria and also a public and political affairs analyst and commentator. Mr. Fanimo, a very good afternoon to you and thank you for
Good afternoon, David. A pleasure.
All right, then. Joining us also virtually is Mr. Okwayemi Ogunlami. Mr. Okwayemi is an activist and also a public and political affairs analyst and commentator. Mr. Okwayemi, a very good afternoon to you and thank you for joining the analysis segment of the Midday News.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and thanks for having me
All right,
with
then.
you.
Thank you so very much for being here. Let me start off with the studio here. Mr. Fanimo, interestingly, February the 21st is going to be the local council election in Abuja. And of course, the INEC chair has urged all party leaders to carefully talk to every eligible voters with their PVCs to come out en masse to come cast their vote. But concerns are being raised about the fact that some opposition parties are saying that it's looking more clear that the INEC is not ready for that election. I'm not even talking on the part of party stewards now. Let's talk about the readiness of INEC for this election. How much of an impact do you think that election would have in Abuja?
It's not in the domain of the parties to determine the readiness or otherwise of the umpire, which is the INEC. You see, everybody has a role to play in an election. Your responsibility as a political party is to mobilize as many as you can to vote so that your candidate can emerge winner.
Right.
It is the responsibility of INEC to conduct the election in a free, fair, and credible manner. So, if INEC says it's ready for the local government, municipal election, how many? Just 5 municipal. And only one is cosmopolitan. The others, because I hope Nigerians and some section of the country are not looking at Abuja as a no man's land. Because the indigenes of Abuja, they are the wise. These are people that they have a common culture and all that. But that does not mean that the inhabitants of Abuja are mainly the indigenous people. But let us give that benefit of the doubt to INEC. If it says it's ready, then let's see how far the election can go.
All right, then.
But parties should also mobilize.
Okay, I'm still going to stay with you because, again, the INEC chair did say that political parties are indispensable partners in the deepening of electoral participation, such to the fact that concerns of eligible voters not coming out to vote is another one that the
That's
INEC
the responsibility of the
talking
parties.
to. Now, what do you think would be the reason why people would not come out to vote? Now, you would recall the off-cycle election in Anambra State. About 600,000 came out to vote in that particular election. We're talking about a state that has over 2.8 million registered voters when it comes to the INEC roster. What do you think might just be the reason why people would not want to come out to cast their vote for their preferred candidates and, of course, see developments in their local areas?
You see, over the years, I've covered elections. You see, issue of migration that is not captured, issue of death that is not captured, you find out that those who register, some registered and they live in Lagos, they live in Kaduna, but they registered in Abuja. So I just feel, what is my vote? That I have to travel all the way from Kaduna or Maiduguri to come and vote in Abuja. Where should I live? For instance, my voter's card is in my hometown. And on the day of election, as a media practitioner, I'm not likely to be posted to my state. So somebody like me, I hardly vote.
Okay.
So, and it's also the same thing for others. But in spite of all this, it is the responsibility of the political party to do grassroots mobilization, because all politics, they say, is local. So the parties should take it upon itself to mobilize people that will vote for their candidates. You see, election process is so fraught with anomalies here that some people also will say, even if I vote, will my vote count? And I had to say it in the morning here, that look, even if your vote will not count, once someday it will count. Go there, vote, and if it requires you stay in monitoring your vote, why not? In a peaceful manner.
And
so not voting is like you are defranchising yourself, and then you are also denying the right candidate the opportunity of representing you. And if a wrong candidate represents you, whatever he says is binding on you. So it's double jeopardy.
Big double jeopardy there. Let's take this conversation to Mr. Okoyemi, who again is standing by with us on this conversation. Well, the INEC chair also did make mention of the fact that political party leaders should caution their supporters as against hate speech, violence, vote buying ahead and during the forthcoming election. From your position as well, do you think in our political landscape, some of these things that the INEC chair did make mention can really be totally taken out of our elections?
As much as I am concerned, INEC is doing its best in terms of re-engineering our political and electoral landscape. And then again, it's part of the function of political party to educate our members. And then INEC too has that, to educate political parties and their leaders on the way to go about dealing with their members. So if INEC is telling political leaders or political parties to guide their members against hate speech, or let me just call it vulgarity in politics, it's a good thing. Nigeria at this moment should start engaging in issue-based political discussion, not throwing tantrums. And over the years, what we have seen is even political leaders, people that we see in front, they throw tantrums. They don't discuss basics, the issues affecting the land, because a leader who is resourceful, a leader who is equipped with all the wherewithal to deal with issues will not be ready all the time to throw shades at one another. They will be discussing matters that concern the development and how to go about the development of the country, not throwing shades, not using words on opponents. So on this account, INEC is making sense, and political parties have a lot to do. Especially their leaders, they have a lot to do on mobilizing members and educating members towards this kind of issues.
I like the fact that you've mentioned the part of political leaders having some parts to play in all of this mix. Now, I did mention earlier while I was talking to our studio guest here that in Anambra State, over 2.8 million registered voters were in Anambra State. But the last off-cycle election saw about 600,000 persons come out to cast their vote. Again, I want to call this another off-cycle election for INEC, and we have about 1.6 million registered voters in Abuja. Should we see any low turnout of voters, what do you think that will be attributed to? And then how can we better it even as a people going into 2027?
Before we can start talking about having millions of people vote and very few in number, I mean, millions of people register for voters card, very few in number come out to vote. There are a lot of factors which had also been mentioned in the studio there. Nigerians have lost hope in our electoral processes. Nigerians, in fact, majority of Nigerians feels that it's a waste of time going into the sun to queue and then vote. At the end of the day, your vote does not count. In fact, that's the slogan all over. Our vote does not count. If people start feeling in a such manner, you before you can tell them to come and vote, you have to gain their trust to show that, oh, our voting efforts will not be in vain. Nigerians have been failed over the years by INEC and then by political parties. Look at America. America would vote. They voted against Donald Trump. He accepted defeat. There was no way to manipulate. The executive never had power over the independent electoral body. So in this place, our electoral body is not independent. Our judiciary is not independent. So in a situation like this, there's nothing we can do. We cannot force people to come out and vote when their vote does not count. When at the end of the day at polling units, you send talks after them. There is no how you can do that. So if we must tell people to vote, then our political leaders should be able to accept defeat at election. Election is not do or die. You will contest, you will lose, or you fail. People will vote for you, or they decide not to vote for you. That's democracy.
All right, then.
And it's happening all around. So INEC has a lot to do. Our ruling parties, the party in power has a lot to do in this regard. So we cannot force Nigeria to come and vote when they don't trust the process.
All right, then let me bring this conversation back to the studio. Now, before I go straight to the Kano situation, Mr. Fanimo, he did make mention of something very critical, and I've experienced it not once, not twice. Election violence in polling units, where thugs come to cut away ballot boxes and all of that. How can that really be curtailed going into 2027 on the part of both the federal government and also, and when I say the federal government, I'm talking about reforming our electoral processes now, and also on the part of INEC? How can we curb this to the barest minimum level?
You see, I know that there's a subsisting law that says that anybody found snatching ballot box in a polling unit, should the security agents manning such unit has power to use maximum force to stop such a person. And I don't know why it is not being enforced.
But in a situation where the security operatives assigned to that unit does not have force up to what the people who came to cut away the box have. I'll give you a clear example. In one of, not even one, twice.
And I understand what you're saying.
So what if in that space, what happens?
You see, the way it should be done is there should be a patrol vehicle assigned to certain jurisdiction that will not just be static for the duration of the election, such that whoever is manning that unit, if that person has issues and is being overwhelmed, it can call for reinforcement in such places. But you find out that those who snatch these boxes are empowered by political leaders. And in some cases, if they are caught, before you leave the station, there's an instruction from above that such culprits should be released unconditionally. It's still our problem.
So with this level of development that you've just mentioned now, let's bring it to the Electoral Act that presently the whole country is talking about. What's your position about the transmission of election results real time? That again has become a major conversation with the National Assembly, even though they did say they have not harmonized that particular bill, both from the House and, of course, the National Assembly.
You see, why should transfer of results real time be a burden to anybody? It is the right thing to do. And it is the only way you can say your vote is likely to count. Mark my words, it's likely to count. Because I've lived enough in this country to realize that any moment there is a policy or a law, people go back to their inner recess to begin to think of how to circumvent such law. And in most cases, they always get the upper hand. You recall that these beavers and RF, nobody knew, even great lawyers in this country, nobody knew that it was just operational tool and not enshrined in the electoral law until after 2023. So, for me, there is no sincerity in this process. And I was saying off camera that, can you give somebody a machete to sharpen? And he knows that you are likely to use that machete on him. You think he will wait and help you sharpen it? Except Isaac. When Abraham took him to that mountain. But I don't think any other living person would allow that. And that is what is playing out here. These legislators, they knew how they were manipulating elections, manipulating votes, and so they are not ready to stop. So they will not bring something that will stop them. It's like using your own weapon to kill yourself. They see it as suicidal.
All right then.
But we can also help them to commit that suicide.
How do you mean?
By advocacy and serious advocacy and pushing hard. They have to.
There is a call that I saw just hours ago where I saw is hashtag Occupy National Assembly. Do you think in the nearest days, this might just be a move by some Nigerians to march up to the National Assembly, demanding that the Electoral Act, which again is the bane of contention here, be mandatory for INEC? You see that happening?
You see, we have seen example. You recall, what's the name of this country where they introduced martial law? I think it's Syria, or I can't remember now. And in less than 6 hours, those nationals, even the lame, moved to the National Assembly and said, no, martial art cannot work here. And at the end of the day, within 6 hours, it was reversed. Legislators were climbing the fence to jump in so that they can add voice.
All right, then. Let me take this conversation to Mr. Kwame, and of course, we'll wrap up from there. Your position with the fact that, yes, the Senate is saying that right now, what we agreed was the transmission of results real time, but it was not agreed in the harmonization committee, which again, we're expecting that comes to reality. But looking at all of this conversation, do you see light at the end of the tunnel as concerning this particular reform on our Electoral Act? We would like you to unmute your mic so we can hear you clearly.
Okay, am I audible now?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay. The introduction of electronic registration or transmission of results that was meant to come up in 2023 but failed to come up will not come up in 2027 because the same set of people who are fighting for power are the same set of people contesting in 2027. And like Mr. Fanimo had said in the studio, I wouldn't have a sword and then use it to kill myself. For what reason? The only thing I've seen that Nigerian political class will always do is they will introduce the good system, but it will be ineffective. Because if it is effective, in fact, many of these politicians in our political offices cannot win an election. If the way you are voting from your polling units is being transmitted directly to the source, where everybody will see the figure increasing, then who are these guys in the House of Assembly, in the National Assemblies, in the National Assembly and House of Reps that would be? None of them. So what we are having is we're having a good policy in most of the time, but are rendered ineffective and inefficient.
As a result of implementation.
Those policies are wrong. Not that those policies are wrong, but because the people are wrong people. I cannot use my weapon against myself. That's just what we're having in Nigeria.
All right, then. Thank you so very much, Mr. Kwame Obulami, human rights activist and also public and political affairs analyst and commentator. Thank you so very much for joining the conversation.
Thank you, and thanks for having me.
Also, big thank you to Mr. Dele Fanimo, seasoned reporter right here in Nigeria, and also public and political affairs analyst and commentator. Thank you so very much.
Always my pleasure.
We'll take a very short break right now. When we return, police arrest 7 international scammers in Delta State. These and more after this break. Please stay with us. We're glad to have you back. It is still the midday news right here on Voice of the People television. Now to more stories. The Nigerian police force said they have uncovered and dismantled an international cyber scam center operating in Agbo, Delta State. They also arrested 7 suspects allegedly involved in large-scale online investment fraud, targeting victims in Nigeria, the United Kingdom, and other countries. According to the force headquarters, the operation was carried out by the Police National Cybercrime Center in collaboration with the UK National Crime Agency with intelligence support from Meta. Force Public Relations Officer Benjamin Hunde said investigations revealed that the suspects ran a sophisticated online investment scam using fake social media profiles to impersonate reputable cryptocurrency traders and lure unsuspecting victims. According to him, the syndicate also recruited and trained young people in online investment fraud and phishing attacks targeting mainly UK-based victims and residents. And to some legal matters now, the Federal High Court sitting in Abuja has ordered the Department of State Services and the Nigerian Police Force to investigate a court registrar, Nasiru Subairu, for allegedly attempting to tamper with evidence. This is connected to the trial of Ali Bello, a nephew of former Kogi State Governor Yahaya Bello, who faces a 10-count charge over alleged complicity in a 10.27 billion naira fraud alongside co-defendant Dauda Suleiman. The EFCC said other suspects, including Abdul Salami Hudu, were still at large. At the proceedings, Justice James Omotosho disclosed that the court registrar, Zubairu, had confessed that Suleiman approached him to delete incriminating WhatsApp messages from his mobile phone previously marked as Exhibits N and O. The judge played the registrar's recorded confession in court and summoned him to testify. Zubairu told the court that Suleiman offered him a house to delete certain messages, admitting that he opened only 2 chats and could not recall the specifics. EFCC investigative officer Mohammed Audu Abubakar also confirmed that multiple messages dating from 2020 to 2022 had indeed been deleted, including texts referring to the transfer of millions of naira. And from that story, we move straight to talking business. National President of the Host Communities of Nigeria Producing Oil and Gas, HOSCOM, Dr. Benjamin Tamaranebe, has warned traditional rulers against bidding for contracts for execution of projects approved for their communities against the provision of the Petroleum Industry Act. He said the monarchs, as heads of host community boards of trustees, have the responsibility of supervising the awarding and execution of projects approved for the communities and ensuring accountability. Tamara Nebe, who was addressing a town hall meeting organized by the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission in conjunction with HOSCOM Project Management in Owerri, Imo State, added that awarding contracts to themselves would lead to compromise. According to him, the coming of Petroleum Industry Act, which approved 3% of the annual operating expenses of oil companies for host communities, brought some relief to some and many oil-producing communities. Meanwhile, the Chief Executive Officer of the NUPRC, Orisamiyewa Eisan, said it was a new dawn for all communities, while urging communities yet to receive 2024 funding to lodge a formal complaint at the Commission. And from business, we'll go straight to talking sports. Ademola Lookman scored in his debut for Atletico Madrid in Thursday's Copa del Rey quarterfinal 5-0 thrashing of Real Betis, kickstarting his career with the club in a spectacular fashion. Having already made history as the first Nigerian to play in the Premier League, Bundesliga, Serie A, and now La Liga, Lookman's move to Madrid is already being hailed as one of the most significant transfers by an African player in this January transfer window. Signed from Atalanta in a €40 million deal on Monday, the Nigerian international immediately justified their investment in his very first outing with Atletico's third goal as the visitors raced to a dominant 3-0 first-half lead against their La Liga rivals. David Hanko opened the scoring for Atletico, heading home in the 12th minute. Continuing their total dominance, the Roger Blancos doubled lead at the half-hour mark with Giuliano Simeone rifled a right-footed shot into the net. Lukman, who remained in the thick of the action throughout, found the moment in the 37th minute, firing home a right-footed strike to the delight of the traveling fans and marking his first goal for the club. And to wrap up the midday news, we go straight talking entertainment. An academic, Professor Aderemi Ajala, has called on Nigerians to pay more attention to the nation's alternative heritage, stating that many valuable cultural and natural histories remain hidden and neglected. The Department of Archaeology and Anthropology lecturer at the University of Ibadan explained that the alternative heritage speaks to the value, identity, and history of the people. Ajala, who spoke at the exhibition of Monuments and Natural History, organized by the National Commission for Museums and Monuments, noted that Nigeria's heritage conversion has been largely dominated by while other heritage forms shaping identity and community memories were often neglected. According to him, heritage is often classified into cultural and natural heritage, as well as tangible and intangible forms, comprising those that can be physically handled and expressed through knowledge, tradition, and lived practices. He noted that some other forms of heritage not listed among the popular classification are now described as alternative heritage because they are hidden, marginalized, and not commonly recognized, but yet deeply significant. And with that entertainment story, we've come to the end of the media news right here on Voice of the People Television. Do well to subscribe to our YouTube channel. On YouTube, we're at Voice of the People TV, and on all other social media platforms, we are at VOPTV Live. Thank you so very much for being a part of this broadcast. I am David Edwin. Do have a good afternoon.
Africa is on the move, a continent of rising voices, untold stories, and powerful transformations. From the streets of Lagos to the heart of Nairobi, from the mines of Congo to the tech labs of Cape Town,